Uh, I just have a few things to start before we get going. Always, it seems so appropriate for us to be doing land acknowledgement, especially when the earth is bursting with beauty and growth. I wanted to share a bit of I had an opportunity to listen to Bob Watts, who's a member of the Six Nations of the Grand River, and he's also a politician, and he was on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission work. And one of the things he said, I'll just be brief, that I really took to heart. He said, how we treat the earth manifests in how we treat each other. And when we love the earth, we will love each other. And he also said, and this is what I think is particular to folks working with children and youth, we should and will see ourselves in the children around us. We must live and love the earth so obviously well that we will see that love in our children and youth. So if we love the earth, others will love the earth and each other also. I know it's important that we name names and treaties and nations and things. So I hope that where you're sitting, you're learning and coming to understand the lands that you are located on, and always learning more and changing those land acknowledgements and including some kind of action or awareness that it seems like part of the process of coming to reconciliation. Another piece is I'm just going to remind folks, and because when we're on a call like this, if you talk over somebody, it gets shut off. So just remember to respect the space and the voices. And if you're the only voice that we've heard forever, then other voices aren't being heard. So let's make sure we share the space if you feel like it. And on that note, I am planning to do an event around duty of care, duty of care and screening 101 in the fall with some help from some other folks. So watch for that. I do get asked a lot about duty of care, and that includes in-person stuff, but as we know, it also means stuff online. Okay, so curriculum always has been, always will be a challenge, trying to figure out what suits and how your situations change and what you need. So I have two people that are going to start our conversations off who in recent times, I've heard some pretty interesting things they're doing with curriculum, some that they've created themselves. And they're so generous to share what they've been doing and what they're up to. And I'm just going to turn it over to them to introduce themselves and say whatever they like and share whatever they like. And then we'll do some questions about that with them. And then we'll do some roundtable, just general things around. And as it's being recorded, like I said, that'll be a good summary. So first I'm going to introduce Lori. And Lori is a colleague in the United Church of Canada, but from Ottawa. And also I have a connection to Lori. I'm a diaconal minister, and so is Lori. So Lori, please, thank you for being here and welcome, and go for it.
Well, thank you. So as Kathy said, I'm in Ottawa. I serve in a team ministry at Bell's Corners United Church, and I was originally hired as a lay person doing Christian education and pastoral care. So my background actually sort of led me to all of this. I was originally trained as a social worker, and later in life became a teacher. Spent 20 odd years in the education business. So coming in to do this little part-time job after I retired to do Christian education and pastoral care really kind of made sense. But then I got this very large tap on the shoulder from the Creator that I tried to ignore, but it wouldn't go away. So 5 years of study later, I became a commissioned diaconal minister in the United Church. And still haven't retired, so I don't know when that'll happen. But as an educator, the Christian education piece was really important to me. And when I talked to the Sunday school teachers that we had here, they all said, oh, well, we use this program. And I said, do you like this program? Oh, sure, it's great. So every year I ordered the program again. And then one year my daughter was a Sunday school teacher for me. And when I saw how much time and effort she put into getting ready to teach Sunday school on Sunday mornings, I thought, this isn't what we want our volunteers to have to do. No wonder we burn out our teachers. There needs to be a better way. And the other thing I found was that what the kids were learning in Sunday school very often did not connect at all with what we were doing in the sanctuary. You know, there are 4 lectionary readings each week, and the one that was chosen by the people that wrote the program wasn't necessarily the one that our minister had chosen. So I gave that a lot of thought over one summer and decided that, you know what, the best way to do this is to write our own. So curriculum writing is one of the things that I was trained to do. And so that's where I began. So we at that time had 5 Sunday school classes, which is pretty amazing. Since COVID, we have 2. And we've been doing this now since, I think, 2014, almost, well, maybe a little later than that, but around there, around 2014, 2015, that we started writing our own program. So we're now finally getting to the point where we can recycle some things, unless my partner in ministry decides to pick some other lectionary reading, which is okay. So Kathy, can I share my screen? Yes, it looks like I can.
I think so. Go ahead, Lori. And folks, we will all get a chance to say our names when we speak. So I forgot about that piece.
Oh, sorry, did you want me to stop and do that?
I think keep going. This is great.
Okay. I think it's coming. No, it's not coming. Okay. Try that again. Share screen. Desktop 1. Share. Allow Zoom to share your screen. Oh, and then it says open system preferences to allow access. Okay. This is quite complicated. I need a password to do this?
Oh, no.
Maybe it's this one.
That's news to me.
Okay.
Anybody
No.
have a new
No,
experience with
good.
what Lori's saying? We're always also wise.
Where's a 9-year-old when you need one?
I know, isn't that the truth? How very bizarre. So I think it's something on my computer, maybe that's not allowing me to do it.
Oh, something's happening.
Yeah, okay, good. So I want to go to, great. I want to go to my desktop though. How do I get there? Desktop. Oh my goodness, now what's going on? I'm so sorry
Oh,
about
Lori,
this.
you know what? Take your time. How about while you're doing that, and you can keep it open, let's just, it's so nice for folks to meet each other.
Mhm.
If that's okay, I'll let you play around with that and we'll just do a round. I know it shows your whole, you don't get to see each other as much, but you can slide her screen to make it smaller if you want. Lynn, would you just say, could we say our names, where we're from, maybe what capacity we are here in?
Sure. My name is Lynn Wilson, and I am the minister at Erie Street United Church in Ridgetown, which, for those of you who may not know, is about an hour west of London, south of the 401. It is a farming area down in this area. Although we have Ridgetown College here, which is an agricultural college associated with Guelph University. So we have a lot of, for a small town of 3,500, we have a lot of people that actually work at the college. So it's kind of a different kind of small town environment here.
Right.
So I don't know if there's anything else you want, Kathy.
That's great. Just, it's nice for people to know each other. Catherine, would you like to just say
I am co-chair of the faith formation team at Central United, which is in St. Thomas. And as part of that, I end up teaching Sunday school many weeks. So that's why I'm here.
Great. Jennifer Irving.
Okay, so I'm Jennifer Irving and I am in ministry at Centennial United in Stainer, and we're just a small rural congregation. So I do like all the things, including children and youth ministry, and try to figure out what we're going to do with them. So
Excellent, thanks. Victoria, you're going to speak later, but the other Victoria Keene.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I do children and youth ministry at Christ First United Church in Mississauga. We're quite a big church, but for some reason, like Sunday school is not where we get the volunteers to come out and to help. So I am also the one that does Sunday school most of the weeks. Yeah.
Thanks, Jen. Auger.
I'm Jen. I'm the Minister for Youth and Young Families at Norval United Church in Georgetown. And yes, I have one wonderful volunteer who helps me out for 8 months of the year. And otherwise, I find myself very much on my own. So trying to explore different ways of doing kids' church without a lot of volunteers.
Thank you, Jane.
Hi, I'm Jane Carmen. I'm from Oakland, Scotland Community Church, and we're a small rural church as well. We do have a couple of volunteers that will help out if I'm not teaching Sunday school that week, but a few of us who do a lot of different jobs. So any ideas from today are very much appreciated.
Thank you. And sorry, Victoria, I'm going to just not have you introduce yourself right now. I'll wait for you after Lori. There you go, Lori. You okay now?
Okay.
Excellent.
Yes, we're here now. So, I just pulled out one sort of typical lesson plan. So this is the sort of the format that we use. So there's a blurb at the beginning that is really for the teachers. So you need to go through this with your teachers, obviously, at first, till they get used to it. So I put in the reading that we're focusing on for that week, and a little bit of background information that is really adult oriented. So you can see in this one that was about Jesus healing the leper, that I talked about, what that is. So we talk about healing touch because that's an important thing in our church. And Reiki is something that we also have some people that are very interested in. So those were things that could connect with the teachers themselves, because sometimes you give them a reading. This one is not quite so obscure, but sometimes you get a reading and the teachers would look at it and say, what the heck am I going to do with that? Which sometimes I do that too. And then we do a lesson for each one. So each class has their own opening routines and rituals. So most of our classes light a candle and do some kind of an opening thing. Our beginners were doing some songs from Season of the Spirit because that was something that we had, that resource here in the church. And the volunteer that helps me out with this is a musician. So she is able to bring some of that to us. We write a little opening prayer, and usually that prayer goes for the whole season. So this is a very simple one for our beginners. An opening activity of some kind. Now, sometimes it's a game, sometimes it's a song, sometimes it's a book, a storybook. We also use the lectionary story Bible stuff from Woodlake. So the Ralph Milton books, I think, are most of you familiar with those? Anyway, it's one that we actually give the family story Bible to our children when they are baptized in the church as well. So it's a resource that the church is familiar with as well. So then we ask, and I always put in some questions for the teachers to ask And in brackets, sometimes we put a few little answers for things that they might not think of, so that nobody's being put on the spot. So in this case, what did Jesus do to make Rufus feel better? And when you're sick or hurt, what makes you feel better? And thinking about some things that might happen, like mom putting a cool cloth on your forehead, and then talking about other kinds of touch that are good for healing. That's so you can see that's kind of the way we were going, that it's all that loving touches are good. So the response activity then is either a craft. It's most often a craft, especially for our little ones. So this one, they just had hearts that were already cut out, and our little ones are like preschool ones, sort of our pre-kindergarten kids, so 3 to 5 year olds. So they had Band-Aids to stick on there and things to decorate it. And then they have a closing prayer. And this one, because we were talking about loving touch, we put that into the prayer. So thank you, God, for all the loving touches in our lives, for hugs and high fives, for hands to hold and laps to sit on. May all our touches be loving ones. And if they need something for the craft, we add that in there. So Jesus Heals were the labels that we gave them to put on their hearts. So the primaries were doing much the same kind of thing. And then so we started out with a guessing game for these ones, taking turns and using only their sense of touch, finding out or figuring out what was in the bag. They read the same story, and then we talked about the same kinds of things, that what makes you feel better when you're not feeling well. And they did hands and hearts, so they had much the same kind of thing. Now the folding the paper in half and tracing their hand on one side so that when it opens up, they've got 2 hands, then they could write all kinds of things inside there. So a little bit more complicated than what the little ones were doing. They had the same closing prayer that week. The juniors, again, we're getting now to sort of grades 4 to 6. So we're going to get a little bit more in depth here. So their prayer is a little longer. And again, it's the same prayer usually for the whole, for a whole section of time, either a season or for a month or 2. We actually read the Mark passage rather than going to the children's Bible, and then asked some questions, some of the same kinds of questions. And then we talk about the stories where Jesus is healing, was healing people, that often touch is involved, and talked about ways touch can be healing and when it could be hurting. And then they did the helping hand. They could do the one that was like the primaries, but this one we thought was a little more fun for them, where they really decorated their hand with bits from magazines and whatever. So you can see they're all kind of related. And their closing prayer was a little bit more grown up. Our intermediate kids, so grades 7s and 8s, were doing pretty much the same kind of thing as the juniors. A little bit more. We talked about Reiki. We talked about chiropractic help, and how does our touch affect other people. So you can see that it's getting a little more in depth and a little more mature. And in this one, they were cutting out hands of all different colors and making a big poster. And when we do something big like this, we have them bring them to the main hall for our fellowship time afterwards, and a closing prayer for them. And then our up group, up stands for United People. They chose the name themselves. That's our high school age kids, our youth group. And they have a different prayer to begin with. They are reading the passage themselves, talking about the way touch is healing in our world today, in family and medicine. And then we talk about more things about Mark's gospel. So connecting it to a little bit more, and the Bell Let's Talk Day, which was something that is important. And so how do we help people drive out demons today? We talked about the research about how important touch is to babies and that kind of thing. And so how are you sharing God's love through your touch? One of the things that we have purchased in our Sunday school is a a little raft of, I think we've got 6 tablets. And so with the older kids, we can have them look up things. So they went on to the Bell Let's Talk website. And we also gave them, just down at the bottom here, some cartoons and an article from the New Yorker that talked about friends and what that is. So nobody has real friends anymore was the New Yorker thing. And then we had lots of different choices about for response activities. So it does give the teacher still some chance to choose one, or depending on the kids. So that's kind of, in each lesson is kind of set up the same way. And we have little bins, like dishpan size bins in our CE office. And a volunteer or myself will fill those bins each week. So in there will go any of the things that they need for the Sunday school, for the lesson at all, including the response activities. If it's a craft, we usually put a sample one that's finished in there. So truly anybody could pick up that day and teach the Sunday school lesson, even if they hadn't seen it before. But we do post them onto a Google Docs, and the teachers have access to that earlier in the week if they want. The advantage of having it so user-friendly is not just that it gives our volunteers less to do during the week and less prep to do, but it also means that if somebody calls in sick on Sunday morning or just doesn't show up, we can grab somebody else to take on that piece. So it has helped us retain our volunteers, and we're not burning them out. It's a lot of work, especially at the beginning for myself and my one volunteer who helps me out with that. But it becomes kind of a routine after a while. And yeah, so that's kind of the way we roll here at Bell's Corners, and it seems to be working really well for us.
Thanks, Lori. I always like to say to everyone, which I'm sure you're thinking too, we all have different situations and places we're working. And I am going, wow, you have that many classes and that many volunteers.
Yeah. So since COVID, we've got, the kids are coming back in dribs and drabs.
Yeah.
So we now, like, I'm getting to the point now where we had 2 classes. We finally have started a youth group again because I was really feeling like we're losing those kids. So now we are 3 Sunday school classes. Our youth group meets on Sunday mornings during the Sunday school time as well. So right now we have the youth group and 2 other classes, but our youngest class is getting really unwieldy. Yeah. So that it's just that not that there's so many children that it's a problem, but the age span is just crazy for her. So if she's got 3-year-olds and 8-year-olds in the same room, you can imagine it's just not working all that well. So hopefully we'll get back to 5 classes.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much. Does anybody have specific questions for Lori right now about anything that she presented? Do you share it, Lori?
We haven't a lot because we do grab stuff off the internet that we don't have permission to kind of send out into the world. So, some of the people on our Christian education team have said, wow, we should publish this. We can make money on this. It's really a great program for us, but I think it's a great program for us as well, because it's specifically for the children that we have. We know these kids, right? We know what interests them and what kinds of things they like to do. It might not work for kids in a rural setting, some of the lessons. I'm not sure it's a one size fits all, but also we worry about copyright. So that's the other thing there.
Appreciate you mentioning that. Thank you for being cautious.
It is awesome.
It's impressive.
Yes,
yeah.
Great.
Thanks. Okay, there may be more come, Lori, that in the next part of the discussion. Victoria, hi and welcome. And will you introduce yourself and then share what you, and I also have a box of yours. If you need me to show anything, you can let me know.
Well, thank you. My name is Victoria McDonald. I don't know if you can hear right now, but there is a program in the other room. They're sort of singing. They shouldn't be doing the loud parts for too much longer. So we'll see. I am I guess my official title is Communications Coordinator at St. John Stevensville United Church here in Fort Erie. I, as part of that, also do the children, young adult, and youth group ministries. I do have 2 volunteers that work with me, and they do the Sunday school teaching on Sunday mornings. We have 4 age groups that we work with. So I have a teacher who runs the 4 to 7 ages, a teacher who runs the 8 to 12s, and I do the 13 to 18-year-olds. And then we have one group that runs from ages 19 to 25, and they meet once a month. So we're a little all over the board. When I started doing my curriculum sort of stuff is I didn't personally feel that the curriculums that were out there were conducive to, like, they weren't teaching what I wanted the kids to be going home with. The lessons weren't either deep enough, or they weren't covering the right, I don't know what the right word for that is, but I wasn't overly impressed. So I sat down and decided to write my own. I do mine very differently than Lori does. So I think it's really cool to watch how a different church sort of runs through theirs. I don't cover the lectionary at all. I sort of pretended it didn't exist. I do my modules in 10 weeks at a time. So the kids have one theme that they stick with instead of sort of jumping all over the place. And for my kids, I find it easier to keep them drawn in. And if every week is covering the same basic idea, then they're a little easier to keep on track. I have with me, I didn't put mine on the screen. I didn't think about screen sharing, sorry. So each day the kids get, all of our age groups do sort of the ritual or mini service together. So they do their opening prayer, their lighting of the Christ candle, they all do their little offering, and they have a song. And then they do the reading before splitting off into their individual classes. So their readings are not actually, like, they are my rewritten interpretation of the story. So written a little bit more kid friendly, the words sort of brought down. It's written the way I would speak. So that works well for them. And then they've got questions and sort of a blurb where they can really think about what that story meant to them. And then they have their crafts. So my Sunday school teachers have an actual example of what the craft would look like at the end of the day. However, my curriculum goes out to a number of churches in the region here. So the other churches get pictures of what the finished craft should look like. They have a version of the craft for a couple of different ages, depending on the 4 to 7s do something basic, and the 8 to 12s do something a little bit more involved, more hands-on. And what I do is I take everything that is needed for all of those crafts and I box it up. So Kathy was saying she's got a box. You've got the prophets, I believe. What I have is the Create a Nativity. So I did a Christmas one. So inside the box, they have all of the lessons for the entire module and every craft piece that they will need, minus markers, glue, what every Sunday school room should have. So this, my Christmas one is they all built their own nativities out of cardboard. So they've got their figures that they painted or they colored and the outfits that they dressed them in, and it's all boxed up. And I like to think it's fairly straightforward. So that's what we've been doing, and the same sort of idea, so that you've got all of the materials and all of the stories, everything is laid out so that anybody can do it. There's no prep work. You have it all right in front of you, and you can hand it off to a volunteer in the morning. They can figure it out as they go. If that's the first time they manage to get their hands on it, that's perfectly fine.
So Victoria, I think there's some pieces I think folks would be interested to know. The box is like, this one is about the profits, and it's for
Yes.
5 kids, right? Like you've got enough stuff
Yes.
here for 5 kids,
There is enough
Right.
materials for 5 kids for 10 weeks.
right? Which is often enough for many of our experiences. I've heard from folks, 5, and then you can add to it. You also put in at the beginning all the what's in the box. Like there's a page that says.
Yeah,
this
so
is
if there's
what's in
anything
the
that you
box.
still need to supplement it,
Right.
or
add
that
to
is
it.
what you will find. And sometimes it's not like it's into the box so that it all fits, but it's not necessarily packed in a easy to find way.
Yeah.
So the list tells you that it is in there. You just might need to dump some stuff out.
And you have been selling these. Tell us about that, how you are getting them around.
Yeah, so I prep the boxes together, and for $125, you get the box completely as is for 5 kids for 10 weeks. And there are right now 3 churches in the Niagara region that are using my curriculums.
Fast enough questions. Does anybody else want to ask Victoria anything? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm a little bit slow, sorry. Victoria, then you would include lessons from like primary up kind of thing in with each box?
Well, I do it by age groups. So
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's
I don't
perfect.
have enough kids to go by grades, so
No.
we do pretty close. Yes.
Yeah, okay. I don't either, but that helps me know. Thank you.
Welcome.
I find it interesting that you do it by a theme. And that's a very cool idea. I'm thinking, wow, that'd be awesome for the summer. I'm not necessarily going to follow the lectionary, but so just a little, one of the reasons we do follow the lectionary and what's going on is so that the kids are talking about the same thing with mom and dad on the way home, so that mom and dad know where
Right.
we're going with that, right? So, and the parents have really appreciated that. So when you say, what did you do in Sunday school today? The parents can say, that's what Reverend Lori was talking about, or that's what Reverend Kim was talking about today. And so they can see how we've meshed it all together. So it's been a really good family ministry kind of thing for us
Mhm.
too.
I did try that for a little while when I first started at my position. My minister just couldn't get her lectionary together in time, and then I wasn't getting what she was preaching on until Thursday night, and then I couldn't get enough stuff together. So eventually I gave up.
And I think that's an important thing to remember, that your church context makes a big difference. So because I'm one of the ministers here, I'm also involved in our
That would
lectionary
help.
study. And each week we talk about what's going to be preached on the following Sunday. So we do that on Tuesday. So I'm ready. I also happen
That's
to work with an incredibly organized minister who gives us like 3 months in advance what she's going to do. Now she's on sabbatical for 3 months right now. And people are saying, so what are we talking about in July? I don't know. I'm working on next Sunday. So I'm not sure whether this would work as well if it was just my church either. So it helps to have that that kind of an organized partner.
Hey, so folks, how about the beyond these? I hope this was a bit inspirational, or maybe dropped some things for you to consider too in how you're doing things. But how about either questions generally about curriculum or things you've been doing or thinking about? We'll do a bit of a, you're all such rich resources. I'm always so happy to hear what you're doing or questioning.
I can start.
Thanks.
We had an interim minister, just before COVID started. And they used, well, the first year they picked curriculum. We, at that time, started to put our children and our adult themes together. We've had a series of different ministers between how the church is set up and all the other things. Sometimes they use lectionary, sometimes they don't. And the minister we've hired doesn't use lectionary often. Right now, if we remind him, he will send us the Bible reading for the week, or if he's doing a theme, what the Bible readings are. The lady that coordinates our Sunday school is an incredible lady who was an admin assistant in her previous life. All of our old curriculum is cross-referenced by Bible story. So so are the posters. So we can pull often to match what is going to be Bible study. And ours goes in, I have one with me, just basically a plastic Ziploc bag. So the information she's pulled, which isn't as formal as a lesson plan, but the information we pulled from whatever curriculums tend to be in a plastic bag. Our kids tend to like the word substitution, the mazes, more the activity sheets than the crafts. So some of those activity sheets, some of those sorts of things. So they're all put together in a bag by lesson plan. We have a couple that are set out. Again, if we have to walk in and just do a lesson and nobody's there. The other thing we've done, I don't know who in this group suggested it, that it was nice to have two people rather than having one person teaching a class. Our numbers vary from like one child who might be nursery age to about 8. Last week we had 7, which on the long weekend I kind of was a bit of a surprise, but that's okay. But we're working with kind of 3-year-old to grade 8s or grade 10s all together. But one person tends to work with these kids or whatever, but we're working more as a team ministry between the two. And then you might go and ask the older kids, you might talk to them about something more specific around that theme, and the little kids you don't do as much. But it means you've got somebody that can be talking to the kids sometimes, and somebody that's interacting with the 3-year-old that's neurodiverse and gets into almost everything, because our Sunday school classroom is used during the week by another group that has all sorts of stuff on all sorts of stuff around. So that's what we've done. During COVID, I was writing take-home sheets for families and emailing them every week or every couple of weeks, every once a month, that were more like what Lori's was, that with the Bible story, questions for little kids, and a prayer, an activity, a craft, questions for older kids. It usually included a song. It usually included an email link to a video, or a link to the video. And the summer one that we did was Birds in the Bible. So there were 5 lessons that had a craft, a food, and that sort of thing. But that's how we'll see how we go. As I said, we've got a new minister that we're just getting used to, and whether we continue. We had been using Cokesbury's and didn't like, then didn't, when they went from Deep Blue to Went Wonder, didn't think we liked the Wonder curriculum. I loved the Deep Blue Submerged curriculum. It was wonderful for that group. But again, they're not making it anymore. I have difficulty finding curriculum for those grade sixes to grade 10s.
Thanks, Catherine.
You know what? I'll go next. We have about anywhere from 2 to 10 kids on a Sunday morning. I have 3 Sunday school teachers who will lead, and 1 adult who always helps them. And I consider her a Sunday school teacher too, but she just doesn't like to lead the stuff and do this stuff, but she's as equal as the rest of them are. So the thing is, as we've been talking about, you've been talking about burnout and trying to make sure that people don't get burned out. So the girls that I have, they're all in their 50s, and they don't want to be doing it every Sunday. So one of the options that we tried to come up with, because they do their own, but I'm one of those anal ministers who works ahead. So they have their outlines usually like for at least 4 or 5 months ahead. They know what I'm actually going to be doing. So some Sundays they will gear it towards that, and some Sundays they won't. But to help them out, one of the ideas and suggestions that I came up with was that 1 Sunday a month, they would have music Sunday. So instead of them teaching and needing to teach every Sunday, I actually am lucky enough to have a choir director who would actually go out with them and do that. And so one of the teachers actually said she would go and do that. And she actually teaches them the bells too as well, because she knows how to play the bells. So, but that might be an option for some people if you have that and might like to do that 1 Sunday a month. And the other thing that we have done as well is I've asked them to reach out to the community more. So one of the things that they've done for a Sunday school time is they actually went to the food bank for a Sunday school time, and we took them to the food bank. And this Sunday, they're actually going to our seniors' home, the Village, as part of their Sunday school time. So those were just sort of things that we were trying to do. So I don't know, depending on where you are and what kind of help you have, but it's usually easier to get adults to go to somewhere like a senior's home or go to the food bank than it might be to actually get them to come and do a lesson at church. So if people have opportunities for outreach, that might be something for you. And it does depend on your area and your class as well, as you say, like what your class likes, what they're interested in. Like right now I have mostly all boys, and they're crazy about dinosaurs. So every Sunday I have them for celebration time. They're always talking about their dinosaurs. So we're trying to figure out how we can come up with some kind of dinosaur lesson, but I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work, but I'm sure we'll be able to link that to something in creation, no doubt.
Thanks, Lynn.
Hi, Kathy. We have a small Sunday school. We have kids there nearly every week. Right now, we seem to have a lot of younger ones that range from age 3 to about 8 or 9. And usually I look after them, but if we find we have more than 5, then another lady will come down and help me at Sunday school. So they're they're really good kids, really eager. It seems to work out well. We're actually recycling the one-room schoolhouse, which they used a number of years ago. Seems to work well with that age group because they like to color, they like to do crafts, that kind of thing. So that works well. The other thing is, I was going to mention for teenagers, last year we had a group of teenagers, and they've decided this year they want to help during the actual services, but we did a Compassion Canada session with them, and Compassion Canada, I think there's 6 weeks that of that session, and each week it was on a different thing. There was homelessness, not having enough food to eat, all that kind of thing. They loved it because every week we had to do something different. You had to sleep on the floor. You had to eat with a plastic fork that was missing 2 tines 1 week. 1 week, they didn't want you to shower only once a week. That was kind of interesting. I don't think anyone actually followed that, but we as teachers did it as well. So, oh, and the biggest one, hardest one for them was to go without tech for 24 hours. That meant not watching TV, not using your phone. Can you imagine with a bunch of teenagers? That did not work well, but they could see how people had to live without that. As part of that, we actually started to help with a youth center in Brantford. And once a month, we would prepare a meal at our church and drive it into Brantford for 50 people. And they would stay and serve. And just seeing youth who didn't have a place to go after school, didn't necessarily, they would leave like later on at night, but they didn't have families to go home to. It was an amazing opportunity for them, and they really learned a lot from it. So if someone's got kids in that age group, that's a really good lessons to learn.
Thanks, Jane.
I am really grateful to hear all of these ideas, first of all. So thank you. Yeah, our Sunday school is just like all over the place. We've all expressed sort of the difficulties of not knowing how many kids we're going to get every week. But even my Sunday school team, like everyone teaches very differently as well. So like Catherine, we always have 2 on Sunday school because we usually have just everyone in one group. So once we hit about 10 kids, I'll take the older kids out and we split them, but it's often like 2 years up to 12 years old sometimes in one room. And so we right now are purchasing the Go curriculum, which I think for the most part is quite lovely. I really like the progressive language and things like that with Go. So what I do is on a Thursday afternoon is I sort of take a look at the lesson and cherry pick what I like out of it, and sometimes add something else to it and sometimes change things. When I send it to this one woman, she does not like the Go curriculum. She's a bit more old school with it. So she likes a bit more structure. So I send her sort of the theme and she does what she wants with it. And oftentimes just sort of does her own thing, which is great. I'm just happy to have the volunteer. And then I have another woman who is very busy during the week, but she's able to help sometimes. So when she's on Sunday school, I like lay everything out for her. I prep all the crafts for her, and when she walks into Sunday school room, everything is there exactly for her. So it's like not just planning for the kids I find is a struggle, but planning for our leadership is a struggle too. And it's like, I don't want to be in Sunday school every week, but sometimes it's just easier to do it yourself, So I don't know. It's a balance. I love being in a Sunday school room, but sometimes it's nice to not. Sometimes it's nice to listen to the sermon.
Thanks, Victoria. Really honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really honest.
Boy, I like Zoom. I get to hear the sermon that afternoon or the next day.
Yeah.
And I don't teach all the time. We actually have about 4 or 5 volunteers, but because the kids are so irregular, we haven't been necessarily using them to their full potential. Because nobody wants to prepare a lesson and not have any kids show up.
That's why it helps, I think, that I prepare the lessons in advance, then that person isn't disappointed. This past week, the one lesson I spent the most time on, no kids came for that age group. We'll use it another time.
I see you unmuted, Jen Auger. Maybe you're going to jump in.
Sure. So we've had our kids come back, but not our volunteers, which is a bit of a strange thing to have. So we have between 5 and 15 kids each week. But even before COVID, I found volunteers were willing to do the activities, but didn't like to do the lesson part because they didn't feel competent in it. So the format that I've been using for quite some time is that I actually do the lesson for all the kids. We gather together. It was a bit of an adjustment for this particular congregation for the teens because they were not used to being with little kids anymore. So that was a bit of an adjustment for them, but I like inviting the older kids to be responsible and role models to the littler kids in that gathering time and in that story time. And it gives me a little bit of more control over how the lesson is taught and what language is used. So that's sort of how we work it out, that we gather and I do the lesson, I do the story and all of that. And then it is just that all the volunteers have to do is an activity. This past year, as I said earlier, I've had one volunteer who does a craft. She loves her crafts. She used to use the crafts from Seasons of the Spirit, but she has been doing it for 20 years. So she just comes up with her own crafts and I just let her do what she wants to do. And I really don't care if it has anything to do with the lesson because they've gotten their lesson and they've had their conversation. And if they go and do a flower when we've been talking about prophets, so be it. They like their flower. If we have enough kids and we have some older kids, then I will take the older kids and do more of a hands-on activity or a video or a conversation. When we used to have more volunteers, I had already moved to a system where I let the kids choose what activity station they would go to based on their interest, not on their age. It usually meant the younger kids-ish went to a craft and the older ones-ish went to a more active game. But it gave the kids a little bit more freedom, and especially those bridge ages where their interests may be impacted by their gender identity. It just gave them a little bit more flexibility to choose what suited them better than us telling them what they had to do on Sunday morning and how they had to learn the lesson. So I still try and play it a little bit flexibly around whether they stay with me or they go do their craft. And then my teens, I pay them $15 an hour to be there, and they go and look after my littles. So that's how I deal with my teens right now, because I don't have, it used to be me who did the youth group and then somebody else did the middle age, and I don't have anybody. So I can't do the youth group, which means I just pay them to be there now. And we connect and we have fun, and they are great role models and they love the little kids, which I appreciate. I wish we could do better, but we're just not there. Or the other thing, somebody mentioned a sports Sunday, and music Sunday. I used to do a sports Sunday once a month. And that was how I tried to invite different people into leadership with the kids. And by different, it usually meant dads instead of moms who would come and just go and play games and sports games. I don't have a gym anymore and I can't do it. And I really miss that because it was a wonderful way to have other adults in roles of responsibility and role modeling with the kids than the typical adults who engaged with the kids.
Love it. Thanks, Jen. There's so many more people in the church than just the ones who come down every Sunday with the kids. And to be asked or to share a gift or a skill or a passion they have, I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, we had them learn ringette a couple of Sundays and volleyball and some really fun stuff that the kids wouldn't do otherwise. And we wouldn't have had those leaders engaging with the kids otherwise. So
yeah,
because there's a lot of other adults who are coaches in the community and do all these other things. And it's how do we engage them in the church and how do we help them to build community amongst themselves as well so that they feel they belong there too.
I can add a little thing to that one as well. So what we have been doing in the past, and we haven't done it this year, but that just reminded me, is that it wasn't once a month, but once every couple of months, we would do a choose your own adventure Sunday. And we would recruit people in the congregation to share their skills. So we had, sometimes somebody will do baking with some of the kids, but we have a bunch of things going on, a bunch of different activities, and the kids can choose no matter what age they are. So one week we would have baking and a geocaching and, a sports thing of some sort or a music thing. And they, would have like 4 or 5 things that the kids could choose from when our Sunday school was huge. I would hate now to try that and have somebody get all prepared to do something and nobody show up for their activity. So we haven't done that recently. And the other thing that we do once a month is an all ages service where the children are in the service for the whole hour, but it's very geared towards them. A lot more music and action things and moving around in the sanctuary, but they are part of the service, which again, we have a very strong focus on family ministry these days. That was one of the things that we put into our visioning for the future, and because we want all the generations to be working together. And that was one way to do that, to make sure that different generations were involved with each other.
I'm going to just check, Jen Irving, is there anything you'd want to share or
Yes.
question?
I
Or
was just about to unmute. Because I was gonna jump off of that and say probably once a month it ends up being I try to do an intergenerational all ages service like that's like experiential and photograph rich and inclusive and all that kind of fun stuff with lots of music. But we've been like since I don't know. I started a lot like years and years ago when I was leading youth group, and that was all we had. Like we didn't have a Sunday school at the church where I was in Saskatchewan, using lesson plans that work from the Episcopal Church. Has anybody heard of that? It's like online, and it's very similar out actually to the layout of what you shared, Lori, like with like an opening prayer and then a scripture with like a lesson and then like response activities. And sometimes it's a craft and sometimes it's other things. And sometimes it needs to be adapted a little more than other times. But each of the people that we have leading Sunday school here has been able to use that. They can each go on and like it's organized by lectionary. And so it's been like a really useful sort of jumping off point each week. Like lots of weeks we'll say, oh, well, this week I'm going to do this theme or instead or whatever, but it's been kind of a neat starting point that's worked well. But it's really exciting to me to see something that's like United Church driven that's very similar to that. And because of the adaptation that we have to do, and right now I have volunteers who are like, yeah, I can adapt that. It's no big deal, but you don't always get that. And not everyone is always comfortable with that. But I used it. It has like 2 age groups in it. So there's like a younger children and then an older children for it. Right now, our older children, our teens and whatnot, are helping with Sunday school. So they get volunteer hours for teaching Sunday school. on a rotation basis, and gives our adult volunteers a bit of a break from that too, and chance to be in church. And also our youth meet separately on a different day, kind of thing. And we've been finding that having any kind of curriculum for them right now, post COVID, and actually being able to be together in person isn't really that valuable. They just want to hang out and like be with each other. And so we've just been encouraging that and growing community, and yeah.
It's a few things I've been hearing. Our resource centers aren't selling curriculum anymore. And people aren't writing curriculum anymore. So you probably have all been discovering that too. Like the ones that the Whole People of God, Seasons of the Spirit, they're all saying, and I'm quite certain that's because one, there's not children to write for, or there's not a demand, there's not a need. And also, people are doing their own, or they're figuring things out that suit their particular needs. So I'm hearing that from you as well, that's quite understandable that it's not a market to be writing curriculum. And in my own many times of experiences doing children's ministry, or being the person responsible to be doing Christian ed, doing it on it, I hear you say this too, doing it on a different time than Sunday morning, and hoping on Sunday morning, the most you can do is welcome, have like, and I had one teacher that said, I just create a birthday party, like a theme. There's a theme, there's food, there's a game, there's a song, and they go home saying that was fun, like, or and not, and the goal as far as a religious or a theological basis, I've made them feel like they belonged here and they were welcomed and they had a good time and they met some other kids, you know. And that, yeah, so and cooking, oh my gosh, I had the most success with cooking. We just did that, and they had to come, they didn't even go upstairs, they had to spend the whole time downstairs because we made the snack every day. We did it twice a month, that we made the snack for after church. Like making a pie, telling kids they're going to make a pie, they're coming, they want to make a pie. Other things people want to, I also learned what I could be offering, or what the church needs to be offering. And the Go Project was an answer to people saying they couldn't find curriculum, but it isn't doing that well. It's folks are not purchasing it, and part of it's cost, but what do you comments further?
Someone said something about, making something more United Church wise. And what we found was there wasn't enough social justice and outreach kinds of things in the Sunday school programs that we were buying. And so that was one of our big things about that as well. So outreach is again a huge thing in our church, and social justice. So especially with our older kids, if we can bring that in and attach it in some way to Bible learnings, that's huge for the kids.
And Jane, you sort of mentioned that too, that was a piece that seemed to appeal. Charity and justice stuff too, playing, the charity and justice games.
We actually, like we have a service and service outreach and social action committee here at the church. That is all old folks like me with white hair, but we actually do a Lenten appeal and an Advent appeal each year. That is a project that we come up with. And twice now the children have come up with an idea for us and have run that appeal themselves. One was for the wildlife care center, wild bird care center near here. And the other one was for sleeping children around the world. One of the kids had heard about this organization and she was just so impassioned and was able, it was probably one of our more successful outreach programs that we did. And I think it was because the kids were so into making sure kids had a place, something safe to sleep on.
Yeah. And then they lend themselves into especially the age, being cautious of ages, but what's the difference between charity and justice, and going down those paths too, and making those. I'm
It's hard to
curious
even
to
cross
to
to
know if,
adults.
yeah, adults need that too. Sure. What did you hope was going to happen here today that hasn't too? Or were you, yeah. Is there anything that you thought, oh, I was hoping I. Well, that's good. You're all satisfied. Any other questions, comments? Victoria has said she'd offer us a blessing and a prayer as we close, but just anything else anybody wants to say or has jumped into their heads about this topic?
Sorry, I just wanted to say that I find it so exciting when the sort of children drive the bus, so to speak. So like we had a spring sale here at the church, and our youth were like, we should do a bake table at it. And so but we're like, okay, you guys want to do that? Sure. Okay. So then we got all of the Sunday school involved. Every kid was asked to bring something, and they all did. And then they all came out on the day of. We do this at Christmas all the time, and no one ever comes. But like for the kids, they don't represent, but the youth are there. But this time all of the kids came out, and not only that, it happened to fall on Earth Day. And then the kids behind the table who were selling things said, we should be doing this with the money, and we should be doing this with the money. And they came up with all these wonderful ideas of things to do with the proceeds from this bake table, including like plant some perennials around the sign in the front of the church, plant a tree that will like blossom and be a place for bumblebees and birds and butterflies, and like do this whole butterfly garden thing, give money towards a sanctuary for birds that happens at Wasaga Beach near here. And like they came up with all of these ideas on their own around Earth Day giving. So we had thought, oh, we're going to use the proceeds to go to the food bank and teach them about what the food bank does. And they were like, we have some other ideas. And I just love it to see that happen, you know, that we can inspire that just by supporting what they say.
I was really worried that we had really lost our high school age kids. Some of them wouldn't make eye contact with me even if they came with their parents. And I thought, oh, this is terrible. And we hired a youth leader. The group has been formally up and running for 3 weeks, and they are leading worship this Sunday. And it was their idea. Like, let's do this. I'm so thrilled. We don't give them enough credit sometimes.
Well, I would like to give you all credit, so thank you. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for offering what you can. I hope this has been hopeful and helpful. And to close, Victoria, are you prepared to offer us a blessing, prayer, whatever?
Absolutely. I don't know, now that I see that there's actual ministers here, I feel like I'm a little
We're all
unqualified here. But yes, okay. So if everyone just wants to bow their head or raise their hands or whatever makes you feel more comfortable. All loving God, gathered here today, you see a number of people who have heard your call and each have responded wholeheartedly. These are the people who are following your example to be a leader for your children. Bless each and every one of them as they strive to create and then follow through on the programs discussed today and more that are still budding in their minds. The programs that will draw more people into your ever-loving arms. And we ask that you walk with them as we all leave this place. Everyone's minds bursting full of new ideas on how to better serve the communities. Help them all to share those ideas, implement those ministries, and in that, spread your love. In the name of the one who encouraged children to gather around his knees. Amen.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. So keep in touch, folks. Outreach to me anytime if you have an idea or thoughts that because your ideas probably are somebody else's need. So thank you. Have a good summer too.
And Victoria, we're all equal in this journey. Remember that. We're all
Well, thank
called we're all called by God, and we're all called in different ways. But don't ever feel when you're in the presence of ordained ministry or any other kind of ministry that you are less than. And I can see Lori agreeing with me. So, you know,
Well, thank you.
I just want everybody on this call to know that.
We are all ministers of some sort. Mhm.
That's right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Kathy.
you.
Take good care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Kathy,
Thank you.
I'll see you
Nice
next
to spend the